Hey everyone! I found a novel with an exciting and contradictory plot. The male protagonist Ryker and the female protagonist Mary have a roller coaster-like relationship. Ryker denies his feelings for Mary to his brother but supports her dreams. Mary's feelings for Ryker also deepen and their relationship is full of suspense. Eager to know what happens next? Stay tuned as I take you into the novel. 6. Raking his fingers through his hair. Ryker stalked through the shadowy streets of Mary's neighborhood. The quaint town was a far cry from the dangerous environment he'd grown up in, where burglaries and brawls were commonplace. Still, old habits died hard, and he remained vigilant, his senses attuned to his surroundings. After a few blocks, he spotted the car they'd arrived in, tucked away in a dimly lit corner. He'd instructed Abraham to wait there while he dealt with his business. His brother, ever understanding, hadn't pressed for details. Approaching the passenger side, Ryker rapped his knuckles against the window, startling Abraham from his slumber. His brother blinked away the fog of sleep, unlocking the door with a knowing, "So, did you take care of business?" Abraham asked, his voice tamed with curiosity as he started the engine and eased onto the The question hung in the air, both of them aware of its true meaning. But Ryker's stubbornness matched his brother's patience. He'd rather face death than admit to his unresolved feelings for Mary. Truth be told, he didn't even know where to begin unraveling the complex emotions swirling within him. "It doesn't matter," Ryker muttered, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. They both knew it mattered immensely. It was the very reason they'd journeyed thousands of miles to this pack's territory. It explained why Ryker had found himself lurking beside the restaurant's dumpster, waiting for Mary to finish her shift. His heart racing with anticipation and dread in equal measure. "She might not be so bad, Ryker," Abraham mentioned. "No," Ryker said firmly. "I mean it when I said I'm done going to go there again." "Did Lottie fuck you up so bad that you can't even get over her?" Abraham retorted, dumbfounded with his brother's unwillingness to deal with female wolves. "Don't," Ryker lashed out at the mention of the female who broke his heart. He gave her everything he could except for money and rank. If she had asked for his life, he would have given it to her. It was that simple. She used his affections for her to make herself feel better. He was a fool to trust and to fall in love. Abraham turned onto the road that led to Alpha Ivan's house. Their surrounding changed quickly from an open landscape to what's surroundings. The moon sat high above them while the radio played rock music softly in the car. "And just saying, we are here strictly for business," Ryker interrupted heatedly. "Okay, if you want to lie to yourself, go right ahead." Abraham shot back just angrily, his own temper rising with his brother's. They came to a full stop in front of the house. Abraham holds Ryker in the highest respect, but the two growing up rough during their teens and struggling on their own for the last 5 years. Abraham trusted his brother with his life. He knew Ryker struggled with trust issues. Ryker changed since Lottie. He became colder and less nice towards females. He didn't hurt them because both brothers believed in never hitting a female, but his words were biting and cold. With him being this cold, Abraham thought females would find him unsuitable and a total asshole. But it was quite the opposite. When Ryker rose to his position and slowly earned a reputation in the werewolf community, gaining his wealth through investments and bridging business partners, Ryker started gaining a pool of females around his feet. They didn't mind his cold, biting bark or his unflattering words. Quite honestly, Abraham was even surprised that Ryker was being nice to Mary. Well, Ryker's way of being nice. Really? Still, he couldn't blame Ryker for feeling cautious and not trusting anyone close. Lottie really did a number on him. Abraham remembered it even when it's been years. The problem between the two brothers. Ryker wore his heart on his sleeves and got his heart broken to shreds while Abraham found it much harder to fall in love. He stuffed his heart deep inside of him. Ryker slammed his door close, which jerked Abraham back to sitting in the car. He let go of the wheel and shifted the gears to park before getting out of the vehicle. Ryker didn't bother waiting for Abraham. His mood has completely plummeted, and he needed a drink. Badly. He walked inside with purpose, with no care that this was his house. He entered the kitchen and looked through the drawers until he found Alpha Ivan's wonderful stash of liquid gold. He took it upon himself to grab a bottle and a square glass from the cabinet before heading to his bedroom. He locked the door to stop his brother from coming inside and giving him another one of his speeches. He heard it way too often that he didn't need his brother's eye-arcing presence. He turned on the light switch before walking further into the room, tossing the liquid gold glass bottle onto the middle of the bed. He started removing his dress shirt. He discarded the shirt on a red velvet armchair before sitting on the edge of the bed. He grabbed the bottle and poured himself a nice cup. In one gulp, he downed the burning yet sweet wood. The pain in his right chest was damning. He wanted to rip his heart out and stab it to give an unfamiliar pain. It wanted to weep and cry for a female who didn't want him. Well, hell, give it something else to worry about. Ryker was so intent on getting rid of the pain in his chest. He finished the bottle in record time, falling back onto the bed with a heavy sigh. He stared up at the ceiling. His mind was running a million reasons a minute. What the fuck am I doing here? He growled to himself before shoving both hands through his hair, rolling over to his side. He scrubbed his face and scratched at his stubbledy beard. Fuck it, he snarled. He would not allow Mary to change who he was. It took so long for him to get here. He won't return to who he was. Closing his eyes, he focused on shoving all thoughts about her from his mind. Her nice curvy body, the way she felt against him, how good she looked tonight dressed in a chef's jacket. Fuck. He was going insane. He grabbed the pillow and threw it over his head, covering his face and ears. He tried once again. She smelt wonderful tonight. He loved the rosemary leaves and buttery aroma that seemed to fall off her in waves. He couldn't help but notice the way she smiles too. It was captivating at all. Neither was it seductive. Yet what pulled him in was something simpler than anything he can imagine. It was the warmth and honesty that stemmed from those smiles from her. Ryker fell asleep but dreamt about Mary all night long. By the time he woke up, he was as thoroughly frustrated with her as he was with the lack of sleep. This feeling would not resolve itself on its own. He was becoming an obsessive idiot. And that was the last thing he wanted. He knew what he needed to do. Ryker needed to hightail his ass out of this territory as soon as he can. There was no point in remaining. He took a quick shower, threw on a V-neck dark navy tee, shirt and dark denim jeans before pulling on white casual shoes. Unbothered to even fix his hair, he combed through it once, twice, and a third time and called it good. Rubbing at his chin, he made his way out of his bedroom, intent on finding his brother and giving him the news of returning home. It took him a while, but he found them, in the least likely area that he thinks they would be. The idiots were sitting on the kitchen island stools and watching Mary cook. How on earth did she end up here early in the morning was beyond him. It was barely 8 in the morning. Abraham was the first to notice him before the rest of his enforcers noticed him. Mary was the last to look up from the stove. She stopped stirring the food was in front of her. "Good morning," Mary replied. "Morning," Ryker grumbled before moving to sit next to Abraham. Abraham threw him a look before wiggling his eyebrows. Ryker noticed from the corner of his eyes that Mary was looking at them. He turned his head in time to catch a shadow of a blush on her cheek. She was blushing at him. No, whatever they were talking about earlier placed that blush on her cheek. He wanted to wipe it off immediately. He glared at her. "What are you doing here? Alpha Ivan instructed me to cook you all breakfast since you all loved it so much last night." She responded gently even when she felt his glare burn holes through her face. "It's delicious. Here, try the breakfast egg muffins," Gray offered, pushing the plate of nicely golden and colorful egg muffins towards Ryker. "If you could wait, I have some hash about ready to eat," she replied. Ryker narrowed his eyes at her before pinning Gray with a look that could split a tree. Gray smiled anxiously at Ryker before turning his back and jumping into a mindless conversation with his peers. The ham shoved Ryker in warning before turning his attention to Mary. "So Mary, where did you learn to cook?" Abraham asked. "I've always had an interest in food. I mean, I enjoy eating, so I have to learn to cook." "Right," She replied with a shy smile toward Abraham. The way she looked at Abe ignited Ryker's early irritation further. Abraham grunted before looking at Ryker in confusion. It's just my brother and me after our parents died. When Marcus turned 18, he became an enforcer, and you all know the weird shift hours that enforcers work. He was almost never home. I was alone, and so I learned to cook myself. It just seemed to fall together with just the two of us. He did one thing to keep us above water, and I did what I can to help, she added before placing a plate in front of Ryker. She turned back to the stove and grabbed the skillet filled with cheesy bacon and hash. The aromatic bacon smell swept in front of Ryker. It quickly got Ryker's attention. He watched her scoop the food onto the plate for everyone. So, do you have a mate in mind? Abraham inquired. Barry's blush appeared again. She laughed nervously before scooping some food onto Ryker's plate. He didn't ask for it. He didn't tell her to make him a plate. But she seemed to do it without thinking. It was highly intimate to fill the plate of an alpha like this. Should only be done if the two are mated, but he didn't question her. She seemed oblivious to her actions. No, she replied, but it is okay. I love my life right now. Do you? Ryker said. She pinned him with her attention. He found he didn't mind it at all. She answered him without looking away. I do. She responded. I think differently. He countered. Her eyes narrowed on him. She remained rooted to her spot in front of him, although on the opposite side of the island. I think you wish to have a mate, he stated, challenging her to accept because they both knew she wouldn't have kissed him if she wasn't seeking. She wouldn't have been at the mating ball if she wasn't interested. 7. For the first time, Mary had the sudden urge to fling all the food in front of her at someone just to satisfy her anger. Instead, Mary took a deep breath, set down the large spoon in her hand, and turned away. Several witty and petty responses floating around in her head, but she swallowed them all down. If he wants to think that way, she'll allow it. Why would she allow it? He wasn't anybody significant she needed to prove herself to. There was no reason to contend with him. Yet this proved to her she needed to keep her distance from him. Honestly, she wanted nothing to do with him at this point. Now that you are all fed, he'll be going, she announced while washing her hands. After wiping them on a hand towel that she brought, she stuffed her washed cooking utensils into a tote and slid it over her shoulders. She turned to look at the group of men and forced a smile to appear on her face. She could see it on their face. Some of them were looking at her with pity on their faces. Alpha Ryker's face was voided of emotions. She could the deep set of his eyes drilling holes into the side of her face. Yet she refused to give him the satisfaction of looking at him, even acknowledging him. He was ungrateful. A pain in the ass. She has quite a few colorful vocabulary words she could describe him. None of them very nice. She nodded her head once before speed walking out of the Alpha's house as fast as she could. Not a minute she would spend here. She'll avoid him throughout his stay here. If the Alpha calls her back, she'll feign sickness, or perhaps she would take a long vacation. It's been a while since she traveled. Heck, she has traveled nowhere. Now was a good time than any. A muscular hand on her elbow stopped her thoughts, just as she was fishing in her pants to grab her keys. Heat and sexual desires and her entire body, compromising her nervous system and her sanity. The smell of sweet cardamom and cloves bearing down on her like cardamom cake. Sweet and sticky deliciousness. Sometimes, it even reminds her of cardamom French toast. What are your plans this afternoon? Alpha Ryker said from behind me. Perhaps they'll find another male to kiss. I heard the bars around here are swarming with unmated male wolves because, I'm desperate to be mated. She said petty lie. He looked at her but said nothing to her petty response. Their eyes collided in a silent stare down. Ryker was almost taken aback by how long she held his gaze. There was a defiant shine to her brown eyes, and it excited Ryker in a way that he couldn't understand. I see I have offended you. He broke the tense air between them. Oh, not at all, Alpha Ryker. Honestly, you are right. In nothing but a shallow, unmated female. Now, if you would excuse me, I would like to remove my insignificant self out of your royal presence. Now you're just being rude, he replied. Her lips pinched into a thin line. He frustrated her. What was it about him that spikes her irritation? She tried pulling her arm from his grip, but he only held on tighter. And you can call me Ryker, he added at the end. Ryker sounds awfully intimate, which she was trying so hard to avoid. She cannot call him Ryker. However, the name made her body react in ways that she held in control. She hadn't even said it out loud, only in her head, and her heart was skipping laps. Alpha Ryker is the proper way to address you. She refuted. He seemed to have trouble finishing his sentence. Mary's eyes flew from staring at his chin to look into his hazel eyes. Although it was hard for her to comprehend what was going on inside of his head, his eyes were almost always a portal of meadows and forest. They were filled with the deepest and lightest colors of green and copper. His hand tightened harder around her elbow. She could feel the firm prints of each one of his fingers on her skin. Suddenly, he sighed and released her elbow, shoving a hand through his thick, lengthy hair. He looked towards the edge of the woods before turning back to look at her. I'm sorry if I offended you in the house. He said each word carefully. It was barely audible. She wondered if he truly meant it, but the uncomfortable look on his face revealed that he was lying. Neither was it a straightforward thing for him to say. She was offended. She was upset because deep inside she knew it was the truth. She went to the ball to find a mate. He said nothing to offend her. It was more like her spinster age and undesirable looks. She has become deeply insecure, and the second she hears the opposite sex question about why she was still at the mating ball looking for a mate, it hurts her. And she wanted to run away to lick her wounds, even if they didn't end to hurt her. It's fine. She said the words she had mumbled a million times. I have to leave. Anyway, I start work in an hour and need to run home to get ready. He nodded his head before allowing her to leave. She quickly got into her car and drove off, although every instinct in her encouraged her to look at her rearview mirror. She kept her gaze ahead. Strength was what would get her through it. Ryker watched her drive away from before he turned to greet his brother, who was hovering nearby. She really seems like a delicate female. Ryker, Abraham said casually while walking to Ryker's side. Ryker's eyes flew back to the bend where he saw her car disappeared. She was a strange one. He has half a mind to chase after her, but he held back. There was no use in chasing after her. So you want to tell me why you walked in this morning in a grumpy mood? Abraham asked him. That reminded Ryker of his intention of leaving. There was no point in staying here. With all that he had already talked about with Alpha Ivan, he could probably complete their contract at home. We can do everything else through video or phone conferencing. We head back home tonight. Turning away from him and walking back inside the house. But by the silent response, he stunned his brother speechless. Are you sure we are ready to return? Abraham said, bounding behind him. Alpha Ivan wants to put a hand into investments, but he has never done it before. He wants us to show him the ropes and in return, help provide us with the resources we lack in our territory. Ryker responded, not missing a step up the stairs. Vampire Deception by Drake Mason and E.Y. Dwight. As an undocumented changeling, I'm forced to pose as a low-level witch. Wait a minute. Hold on. We are lacking resources now. Abraham grabbed his brother's shoulder and turned him around. In all actuality, no. They were not lacking any resources. They tended their land with care. They only take what they need and never obsessively destroy natural resources. He could go without Alpha Ivan's resources. Abraham's narrowed eyes slackened a little. He released his brother's shoulder only to chuckle to himself, scratching at his own growing beard. He looked at Ryker again. I see what you're doing. Buck Abraham said smugly. I'm not doing anything. Ryker growled. Who you trying to convince? Brother. I know you better than anyone. We don't hide secrets from each other. We sure as hell don't need resources. As you so stated. Why don't you admit the real reason you established this contract? Abraham gloated. You're starting to irritate me. Abe, back off. Ryker threatened. Abraham snorted and shrugged his shoulders. He stretched his upper body before turning to look at Ryker. What time we are leaving? he asked. 6, Ryker nearly barked the answer at his brother. Oh, just enough time. Abraham sighed. Ryker knew what his brother was doing, and while he didn't want to succumb to his brother's idiotic charades, he knew his brother was up to something. You know you're right. Life is too short. I think I should ask Miss Carter to join us back home. If I like her, I may just mate with her, Abraham said, stuffed his hands in his pocket and began rocking on his feet. In a blink of an eye, Ryker had his brother shoved up against the opposite wall, one arm across his chest. Abraham wasn't fazed at all. In fact, his laugh grew louder. It boomed and rumbled deep in his chest. Stop fucking around, Ryker growled. I'm not, Abraham said while looking at his brother straight in the eyes. Ryker gazed into them and couldn't find a hint of humor inside his brother's eyes. Suddenly, doubt set inside of Ryker. Did his brother like Mary? He may have joked and laughed about it, but Ryker knew that Abraham never got on with females before. Both brothers dealt with females differently. Abraham slept around, but it was solely to appease his sexual appetite. Otherwise, no feelings were involved. Another thought flashed across Ryker's mind. Abraham wouldn't be thinking about sleeping with Mary. Even the thought caused an unnecessary churn to Ryker's stomach. And it bothered him. Ryker released Abraham and stalked off. Not another word was spoken to his brother. He needed to drink badly and possibly a few runs in the woods because the last few images of Abraham and Mary together may as well turn him into a sadist devil. He wanted to rip his brother into a million pieces. Growling, he headed down the stairs, removed his shirt, tossed it by the door and jogged out the front door. Boss. He heard his pack called out to him. Kicking up speed, he ran straight into the nearest woods before shifting immediately. His jeans tore into pieces. He couldn't wait to unrest. He needed to leave before he says or does something stupid. Usually, a good run would clear his mind. He can't be around anyone right now. His paws thumped on the ground. The wind whipped and slid underneath his fur like a gentle caress. Fresh air invaded his nostrils and his muscles stretched and ached to the recent change in shift and speed. But Abraham stuffed his keys into the jean pocket as he stepped out from his car. On instinct. People were rushing around. A few were shopping and doing their daily business leisurely. The sun shining brightly above them, and there was a hint of cold air from last night that still lingered in the early morning. Easing his fingers through his hair casually to smooth back the strands that escaped because of the light wind, he turned to look at the restaurant behind him. Mary worked in the small town restaurant, and she was a damn superb cook. In fact, he has been dreaming about the steak he had the other night that she made. Breakfast this morning was amazing, but that steak, it was something else. It literally melted in his mouth and seasoned to perfection. Just thinking about it made him salivate for more. He shook off the picture of the steak in his mind and walked up the curb and sidewalk to the entrance. The front door was an old cherry oak door with 3 vertical rectangular glass windows in the middle. He grabbed the metal handle and opened the door. Immediately, spices invaded his senses. His mouth began salivating. "Sir," a female voice said from his left. He turned his head to look at the adolescent female hostess. She blushed immediately once Abraham locked eyes on her. It was a natural reaction from women. He was used to it and barely paid attention to it. "Would you like a seat for lunch, sir?" she inquired meekly. Abraham walked over to her and watched the blush climb up her cheeks and to the roots of her hair. He knew he was intimidating and wasn't a bad of a looker, but damn, this woman's reaction put a smile on his face. Unfortunately, his lopsided smile only made her even more flustered. She began muttering all kinds of phrases until she realized she was making a fool of herself. Understanding why she was feeling this way, he put her out of her misery. "Actually, I'm here to meet a friend. Mary. Do you know her? She works here." Abraham interrupted her, mumbling. "Yes, does she know you are here?" the hostess asked. "I'm afraid not, but I'm sure she wouldn't mind seeing me." Abraham added with a smile. "Why, you are her boyfriend," she stuttered, and he could hear the disappointment clear in her voice. Yes, he lied smoothly and knew if Ryker was here, he'll probably punch Abraham all the way to the other side of the room. But he wasn't here. You must be the boyfriend she has been telling us about. The one that lives in Normandy. She talks about you all the time. The hostess stated with a smile. For a minute, what she said took him by surprise. Did Mary have a boyfriend? Then what the hell was doing at the mating ball in the first place? Shit. Abraham could already see Ryker's reaction already. The hostess led Abraham towards the kitchen. He glanced around the dining area and found a ton of people sitting around chit-chatting while eating. It wasn't even close to lunchtime yet, and the customers almost filled the restaurant. The door to the kitchen flapped open. A waiter came out with a tray of food. He skillfully maneuvered around them without spilling the content of the food. The hostess opened the door and took in the silver colors of the decently sized kitchen. Several people's heads shot up from their workstation, narrowed at the hostess, and then slid over to Abraham. The hostess tapped Abraham's arm to get his attention. He looked down at the tiny woman before following the direction of her pointed finger. Mary was working behind a workstation. Her arms were deep inside a big metal mixing bowl, her hair tied neatly back to allow her to work. "Mary," the hostess shouted. Mary's head shot up. She looked towards the entrance of the kitchen. Waiters came in and pushed both the hostess and Abraham to the side. Abraham waved his hand while shoving the other in his pockets. In his mind he was chanting, "Please don't kick me out." Mary washed her hands and wiped her hands quickly on a towel while walking over to them. "What are you doing here?" "HS your boyfriend. Aren't you excited to see him?" "What?" Mary nearly shouted her surprise, her eyes moving to Abraham to find out what his motive was. "You know, which you know, the one from Normandy. Aren't you happy to see him?" "Hisn. Oh love, oh witch, oh love. How I missed you," Abraham exclaimed and yanked her into his arms. He squeezed the breath out of her, so she wouldn't be able to squeak out the truth. "All you two look so perfect together. Narrate." Abraham wrapped one firm arm around Mary's shoulder and gave it a good squeeze. He looked down at her with a fake fondness and adoration that everyone who saw would believe except for Mary. "Did you miss me?" Abraham asked. "Die WW, Narrate again. Nara, go man the front," Mary snapped. Nara pouted but did as she was told. Turning to Abraham, she removed his arm from around her shoulder. "What do you think you are doing?" she asked. "I wanted steak," he replied with a nonchalant shrug. "I just cooked for you." She growled angrily and walked away. Abraham followed with a skip to his walk, his hands in his pockets. He looked around the kitchen and walked around to where Mary resumed her cooking, leaning over her shoulder. He looked down at her bowl. She was kneading dough. "Okay, I'm not here because of your cooking skills." He started but winced when she threw him a death glare. Okay. Partly because of that, but mainly because I wanted to talk to you." She stopped her kneading to look at him with a questionable look. "What do you mean?" she asked. "What are you making?" He redirected. "I asked first." She frowned. "We have plenty of time." Abraham pulled out his left arm to look at his watch. If there was something he knew about Ryker, it was that even though he was a stubborn son of a bitch, he would always bite the bait. "I'm making biscuits," she grumbled. "After biscuits?" he asked. She stopped kneading again and leaned back on one hip to look at him. Something crashed loudly in the background. Sounded like someone dropped their dish they were working on. There was a bunch of cursing coming from their left side. They both turned to look in that direction before returning their gaze back to each other. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I just want to talk to you," Abraham insisted. Suddenly, Mary looked a little uneasy. She shifted on her feet and threw her attention back to fixing her dough and putting it away for later. Once done, she turned to look at Abraham. Her eyes swept over his face and made him feel a little exposed. What?" he asked. "Nothing. You just look a lot like your brother," she muttered under her breath and turned to the sink to wash her hands. "I've heard that many times before," Abraham replied. "Have any of them mistaken you two for one another?" She questioned without looking at him, a hint of a blush touching her freckled cheeks. Abraham admitted that freckles shouldn't be attractive, but it was on her. She was attractive. What do you mean? He questioned, moving closer to her. It's nothing, she said. OCM. I can see the blush on your cheek. He teased. It's nothing. Really? She brushed him aside and changed the direction of their conversation. So, you wanted steak. Mary turned away from him to look for the ingredients, but he grabbed onto her arm and stopped her from walking away. Hold on, he said and turned her around to face him. She looked up at him curiously. He reached forward, and his hand grew closer to her face. Immediately, Mary pulled back. He stopped her actions. You got something on your cheek, he said. Abraham was about to wipe it off, but a brawny hand stopped him. Both Mary and Abraham looked at the hand and then followed it to a glowering Ryker. He threw his brother's hand away, grabbed Mary's arm, and yanked her behind him like a possessive alpha male. What are you doing? Ryker hissed at his brother. Making friends, Abraham retorted, by touching her face. Ryker growled angrily, taking a step toward his brother. His hold on Mary's hand tightened painfully. Mary grimaced and tried tugging her arm from his grasp. She has something on her face, Abraham argued, pointing at Mary. Mary attempted to wipe it off but stopped when she got pulled between the two brothers. Ryker took one look at Mary and saw the streak of flour on her face. His actions were rough, but the second he touched her face, it was a gentle caress. His dark, stormy eyes connected with hers, and for a moment she forgot that they were at her workplace. To people who shouldn't be here were making it seem like they had every right to be here in this kitchen. Satisfied after wiping the flour off her face, he pulled back. His grip on her arm loosened a little, but he kept a hand wrapped around her arm. Go back to the Alpha Ian's home and prepare the others to leave, Ryker ordered. But I'm not finished here. I've yet still to ask. Leave, Ryker roared at his brother, who was unfazed. Everyone felt the effect of Ryker's command, human or not. They all cowered their heads. A shiver ran down Mary's back and her skin crawled with goosebumps. She shouldn't be turned on at all, but she was. All right. I'm going. Abraham conceded after he realized he had accomplished what he wanted to do. All he wanted to do was having his brother admit that Mary was something he wanted. By the way, he was holding on to her and protectively hiding her behind his back. He wanted her a lot. Ryker watched his brother exit the kitchen before turning to look at Mary, who looked thoroughly disgruntled with the two. Excuse me, I have work to do. She dismissed Ryker and walked away. Ryker followed her to another workstation. What did my brother say to you? He questioned, fighting off a jealous rage boiling through his veins. Mary replied with a careless shrug. Ryker's eyes narrowed on Mary to see if she was lying. Suddenly, Nara appeared from the kitchen entrance. She rushed over to Mary's workstation. How was it? How was your boyfriend? Did he kiss you? Oh my God. Did he confess his undying love? Boyfriend. Ryker's outrage came out as a threatening growl. Seeing that Ryker was in no mood to hide his ability to growl, Mary quickly interrupted and slapped a hand over Nara's mouth. Nara, leave, she insisted. Nara mumbled her protest into Mary's hand, but her hand muffled it. Then her eyes moved to Ryker, who looked almost like a replica of Abraham, except that he was much taller and broader in the shoulders. Her questioning look returned to Mary. She gestured with her finger to Mary and then to Ryker and left. Leave, Mary ordered before dropping her hand and allowing Nara to leave. But before Nara could leave, Ryker stopped her and surprised Mary with his confession. I'm her boyfriend, he announced. Mary was seething with fury. She couldn't believe her ears. The Stonewall brothers arriving at her workplace and telling everyone here that they were her imaginary boyfriend was a dream. Then the look on Nara's face when she heard them both say they were her boyfriend. She couldn't believe it. Mary decided that if looks could kill, she would kill both brothers instantly. Then Ryker didn't even explain to her co-worker. He just grabbed her like a flower he plucked from a bush and carried her out. the second they were outside. Though, Mary broke free. She was so angry that she had forgotten about work, but walked in the opposite direction of Ryker. "Where are you going?" she heard from behind her. "Anywhere but here." She snarled and jerked her head so hard. Her thick hair came loose from her bun and fell around get nape. "Mary." Ryker sighed from behind her. "No." She whipped around like a war queen and stomped her way back to Ryker with her finger raised in the air as she pointed at him. To Ryker, she looked startling, bewitching. Mary's dull, colored eyes light up like shooting stars. Her pale, freckled cheeks were rosy and flushed with rage. He realized she was angry with him. He couldn't believe it. Females were generally afraid of him because of the way he carried himself. He never smiled. "You don't get to scold me. By gods and goddesses. What were you two thinking? Storming into my workplace and announcing to the people I work with that you are my boyfriend." She scoffed and shook her head in disbelief. "It's tunned, Ryker. To think I was being civil and kind. I went to cook you breakfast even though you were a total fucking ass to me." She continued in a fit. "I told you I was sorry." He grumbled. She made a disbelieving sound, turned again and started walking in the opposite direction. "I need to speak with you," Ryker said from behind her. "I need not speak to you. In fact, do me a fucking favor and let's avoid each other during your stay here," she shouted without looking back. She was halfway down the block when she felt the cement disappear from underneath her. She thought the world was slipping, but realized Ryker had scooped her up into his arms. "What the hell do you think you are doing?" she demanded. "We are talking," he said with deference while carrying her across the street and into an open park. People near them stopped to stare or pass a few side glances their way. He plopped her down a little hard onto a wooden bench before sitting down next to her. "How dare you? You have no right to manhandle me this way." She growled and attempted to get back up only to be yanked back down by the arm. "We are going back to our packlands," he announced suddenly. She stopped to look at him. For some reason, hearing that they were returning made her feel disappointed. "Oh," she replied. They looked at each other without saying anything, but so many questions flew between them. Would this be the end? How quick it began and how quickly could it end? Mary's eyes swept over Ryker, trying to memorize everything to heart before all of this comes to an end. She had thought they would stay a little longer, but to hear that they were leaving so soon it disheartened her. Weren't they here to examine Alpha Ivan's pack territory? Weren't they here to find mates? She wished she knew this was going to be the end for them. The sudden disappointment took her by surprise. Was she disappointed that she won't see him longer? Was she disappointed that what they have between them was possibly nothing more than a one-sided feeling? His eyes did a slow scan of her face. She felt his gaze touch from the very tip of her head to her neckline. She felt self-conscious. She knew she was the prettiest wolf in their pack. "Do you have a boyfriend?" he asked abruptly. Her eyes snapped back up from staring at his light stubble chin to his hazel eyes. "Your co-worker mentioned a boyfriend. Do you have a boyfriend?" he repeated. She shook her head and dropped her gaze back down to her hands in embarrassment. "It was easier to lie about a boyfriend than to tell them I don't have one," she whispered in shame. "So I made up my boyfriend. Lied to everyone that he lived in Normandy, which was why he couldn't come to visit me. I made up stories about our first meeting and our first date." After revealing the truth, Mary couldn't bear to look in his eyes. He would probably laugh at her idiocy. She knew it was wrong to weave such a tale, but it was easier to lie that someone found her attractive and took her out on dates than tell the truth. She heard him chuckle and turned to look at him. His eyes were bright and shining. "I am assuming the nagging from your female colleague stopped?" Ryker inquired. She nodded, and one corner of her lips lifted. "Brave of you to come up with such stories." "I wouldn't have been able to do it," Ryker stated. She looked at him, confused. He wouldn't have to come up with a story because he looked like a male model. Did he not look at himself in the mirror every morning? Does he sleep under a rock? Surely. He was teasing her. "You're easing me, aren't you?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. "Actually, I'm not," he responded. "Excuse me, but you must clarify. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? She said in disbelief. One corner of his lip lifted handsomely that Mary's mind ran a blank for a second. You'll take that as a compliment, Ryker replied. But looks mean nothing. She snorted in an unladylike manner. You are lying to yourself then. Looks are everything for everyone. If looks weren't everything, then I would have been mated by now. She said petty lie. For a few selected individuals. Maybe, but I won't let them speak for me. When I say looks mean nothing to me, it truly means nothing to me. She turned her head to look at him. The slight frown lines on his forehead and the intensity in his hazel eyes were enough to convince her that maybe looks truly didn't matter to him. Her respect for him grew. So why you are heading back so early? Is it because you have already decided what you want to do? She changed the subject and turned to look back at him. His eyes roamed her face once again as if seeking the answer to her question before he answered her. You can say that, he replied. Is our territory not to your liking? She questioned, unsure of what he meant by that response. Do you have any friends here? How long have you been working at that restaurant? He averted the questions back to her. A few friends, but nobody close. I'm not wired with the ability to socialize. So I'm incompetent to make it in society. Mary chuckled, not taking it as a bad thing. Honestly, she liked her simple, no-tangled lifestyle. Leaning forward, she placed her hands on the bench. She looked ahead. When I got out of culinary school, it was the first restaurant I applied for. It may not be a 5-star restaurant, but it is highly popular in our neck of the woods. Have you ever thought about traveling? Possibly stepping out of the comforts of your pack members and exploring other territories? Mary scoffed. My brother will have my head. He wouldn't allow me to leave. But do you want to? He prodded further. She turned to give him an amused glance. As much as I love him, I want to make my own decisions. He seemed to mull over her response because he said nothing to what she had admitted. Someone honked their horn in a distance and both their heads turned that way. It was about midday and the streets are getting busier now. Suddenly, she realized that she had just walked out of her job. She needed to get back. Shooting up from her seat, Mary started back towards the restaurant, but stopped when Ryker's hand wrapped around her wrist. She turned to regard him with a quizzical look. I'm leaving today at 6. I will not lie. You are a damn excellent cook. If you ever want to break free, you can come find. I'll hire you. Besides getting hired under me, you'll meet a ton of new people that may give you opportunities to advance your career. Mary, he blurted. She looked at him like he was crazy for suggesting for her to leave. But deep inside of her she ached for independence. She loved her brother with all her heart. But she wanted to experience her life without her brother butting into every decision she makes. I have to get back to work, she said. This situation seemed startlingly familiar to the one at the ball. Old sensual vibes were rippling between them at the memories. His hand tightened around her wrist, waiting for her response. She tugged her hand for a second before looking back up at him again. A determined look appeared on his face. Mary knew that he wouldn't let her go this time. She needed to respond to him. Running away last time was easy because she surprised him. I'll think about it, she whispered hesitantly. He released her hand. She brought her wrist to her body and held it, still feeling his hand around her wrist. Its warmth was comforting. With one last look at the domineering hazel eyes, she turned and ran back to her workplace. Mary's head ran with his words. Alpha Ryker was giving her an opportunity, but her heart was pounding for a whole different reason. She was just excited about the carrot he dangled in front of her now. She was excited because of him. 10. Mary was halfway through her work shift when she received a text from her brother. Marcus wanted her to come over. She thought nothing of it. That was until the person who opened the front door was someone she didn't recognize. He looked robust in frame and the heavily sun-kissed skin told he worked in the fields a lot. She had nothing against it at all. Actually, he looked charming when he smiled at her. Mary, her brother shouted from inside their home. Mary glanced inside before returning her eyes back to the unknown man. Who are you? I'm sorry. My name is Benjamin. I'm a friend of your brother. he said and brought his hand out for her to shake. She shook it just as her brother appeared from behind. He grinned when he saw Mary. "So glad you could make it," he said. "Well, you told me to buy cake," Mary said and looked down at the cake in her hand. "Donnie has been asking about it. I figured I might just kill two birds with one stone. You know." He chuckled and opened the door wider for Mary to enter. They walked further inside before two twin boys came running out. They screamed Mary's name and wrapped their limbs around Mary's legs. Jonathan and Joey were little rascals and enjoyed making their auntie miserable. "Auntie Mary, guess what?" "Guess what?" the two 4-year-old boys asked in unison. The mischievous looks in their eyes told her there was more behind those questions. She was half afraid to ask, but she loved them terribly. "I won't take the bait unless you two boys release me." She posed with a tilt of her chin to show them she would not deal. Slowly, she felt the weight on her legs lifted. With a smirk, she handed the cake to Marcus and crouched down to look at them eye level. Both boys looked like their father, the replica in hair and smiles. "All right, I'm ready. What's up?" she asked them. Joey leaned over immediately. "Daddy got a secret. A big secret." Jonathan nodded without whispering. Joey threw his brother a glare. "Johnny, you weren't supposed to say it out loud." A brisk chuckle from behind her caught them all by surprise. She lost her balance with Joy's weight and fell backward, but powerful arms caught her. She realized that Benjamin didn't leave. He stayed behind to watch their interaction and caught her in time before they all tumbled to the hardwood floor. "Whoa there," Benjamin laughed. "Yes, the big secret." Jonathan leaned in to whisper in his auntie's ear. Confused, Mary frowned as Benjamin hoisted her up, and the boys straightened. Now that they were all standing, she turned around to look at Benjamin. "I'm sorry. You caught me by surprise." She apologized quickly. "Mary, Benjamin, boys, come and sit down," Marcus said from the dining room. Danielle stepped out from the kitchen with a bowl of salad in one hand and the other on her back. Mary smiled immediately when she saw her sister-in-law. "Oh, you are glowing, Donnie," Mary said and walked over to hug her sister-in-law tightly. "I'm fat, Mary," Donnie laughed. "You are not fat. You look beautiful," Mary argued. "That's what I tell her every day," Marcus said from the head of the table. Danielle moved the bowl of salad down on the table before pointing her fingers to the two seats opposite from her. "Place it," she urged both Benjamin and Mary. On a normal evening, Mary would sit to Marcus's left and Daniela would sit to Marcus's right, while the boys would sit next to their mother. However, tonight was different. They had a guest. Mary was about to pull out her chair, but Benjamin beat her to it. He pulled out her chair. She didn't think about any of it. She sat down in her seat. While dinner was being passed around the table, she noticed Daniela and Marcus looking at her. "Mary, remember that one day during your freshman year we went to Austin for spring break? We traveled for a few hours and got stuck on a country road," Daniela began. Mary's mind flew back to the old days. She remembered that day. They had wanted to do some sight. She also remembered being rescued by a bunch of boys. It was one of memory that she wasn't very fond of because when the boys helped them they paid extra attention to Daniela but not her. When they handed them water bottles, Daniela received it to 3 while she had to ask for water bottles. It was embarrassing. She also remembered a particular blue-eyed male wolf in the group she thought she had a good connection with but was horribly wrong when the boys set her straight. She connected the dots. And her gaze flew to Benjamin. He was that boy. Hey, Benjamin smiled in her direction, flashing straight white teeth. She turned her gaze back to her sister-in-law and Marcus. They had a great time in Austin, Texas, but all Mary wanted to do was run back home and hid under her sheets. She remembered an awkward night of kissing Benjamin and Benjamin pushing her away. She couldn't blame her brother and sister-in-law, though. They didn't know that this had happened during the trip. She kept it all to herself. "I'd on treacle," Mary lied through her teeth. Daniela and Marcus looked slightly disheartened, but they said nothing. Benjamin looked slightly relieved. Mary was glad, though, when they didn't press her to further remember. Dinner continued with a little talk about the past. Mary gulped down her dish. She needed to get out of there fast. But she had too much hope. Benjamin started a conversation with her. "So, what have you been up to?" "Mary," Benjamin asked. "You look amazing. Different from when you were 15. Nothing much. Nothing much," Mary answered with a shrug. "She's a chef at one of our local restaurants," Daniela said with a gentle smile. Mary stared at her half-eaten plate. She knew Daniela meant well. Her brother, too. They both loved her so much. They wanted to see her happy. They also knew how much Mary wanted to start her life. But Benjamin, this couldn't be happening. "A chef? Wow, you can cook," Benjamin said in interest. "That's amazing. Maybe you can teach me." She slammed her eating utensils a little too hard onto the table. Mary pushed her chair back. I'm sorry. I have to use the restroom," she lied and stood up. Mary made a run for the hallway. She needed to escape. Now she knew what the twins meant. This was her brother's surprise. "Mary?" her brother said from behind her. She stopped to look at him. They were safely out of earshot. "You don't like him, do you?" Marcus said knowingly. "I want to leave," Mary announced. "Why, he is a great guy. The guy out there rejected me when I was 15. The guy out there pushed me away when I kissed him. He said he didn't like me the way I liked him." She spits out the truth. "What?" Marcus stuttered in surprise before his face transformed into anger. "Why didn't you say anything to me? So you can pummel his face in," Mary retorted angrily. "Fuck yes," Marcus growled. "Hes your friend." "Marcus, he's my friend. But you're my little sister. You'll fuck up any boy that hurts you. Friend or not," Marcus announced. She shook her head, feeling all kinds of emotions but mostly sadness. She was sad because even though her brother meant well, she wanted to do this on her own terms. Mary wanted love. That was true. Mary wanted a mate that would cherish her and wipe away her tears. Coddle her when she was sad and make sweet little promises to her. Mary wanted it so much. But not this way. "Marcus?" Her voice dropped at the end. "I'm sorry. Mary. They'll kick him out if it makes you feel better now. I just need a minute." Mary shook her head. "Okay," Marcus said after a minute. Mary walked into the bathroom. Once she closed the door behind her, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. Even though she was sad, she was also angry. Angry. Her lips pinched, and her fingernails dug into her palms. Why was this so hard? Why couldn't she be perfect? She closed her eyes. "I'm leaving today at 6. Her eyes flew open. Mary took out her phone from her pocket and stared at the screen. It was already past 6 in the evening. She looked out the window of the bathroom. The sun had set. Suddenly, she made a decision. A decision for herself. She took a leap of faith. Turning towards the window, she opened it and slid it up. Putting one leg over the ledge, she hesitated, turned to look back at the bathroom door. She thought about Marcus, Daniela, and the boys. Could she really do it? Could she really chase her dreams and choices? This was her choice. She won't be able to blame anyone but herself. "I'm sorry," she whispered, before jumping out the window towards her fate. When her feet touched the ground, her heart sped up. Mary began dialing Alpha Ivan's number. On the 4th ring, he picked up. "Mary, what can I do for you?" Alpha Ivan asked. "Alpha Ivan, I need to know if Alpha Ryker and his pack left yet," she asked. "Yes, they left about 20 minutes ago," he replied. She still had time, but she'll have to shift to catch up, and that means she couldn't carry anything with her. She focused her energy on her shift. Her wolf pushed forward. Her bones cracked and fur sprouted on her skin. Her phone dropped to the clean, cut grass. Her clothes shredded in an instant. Mary didn't waste another minute. She ran straight into the woods behind her brother's house to escape any unwelcome attention. Her wolf's brown fur flew in the wind. It felt amazing, but not as amazing as the way her muscles worked hard in accommodating how quickly she was moving. If she calculated correctly, she could catch up to them before they hit the busy highway. Mary needed to catch them before they hit that highway, or it would be too late and it would force her to return. Her brother would definitely stop her then. Faster. Faster. Mary. Run. 15 minutes flew by, for an excitement crawling through her in a way that she seldom explain. This was the first time she chose for herself. She catches sight of the country road ahead. Vehicle lights rounded a corner and flashed her way. Encouraged, she kicked harder on the ground, closer and closer until she jumped right in front of the fast, moving jeep. When they came without driving a vehicle. They ran in their wolf forms, but because they were taking a different route home, they ran to blend in with the humans. The jeep came to a screeching halt. A second later, doors clicked open and slammed shut. What the hell? One enforcer said in surprise when he saw Mary's wolf. Who is that? Abraham asked curiously. Ryker pushed away his pack members and stood in front of Mary. His eyes swept over her wolf and then looked deeply into her eyes. Mary. He recognized her. Mary. What is she doing here? Was this why you waited another 30 minutes before leaving? Abraham questioned. Ryker didn't answer. He knelt down and ran his hands through her fur. She pushed against his hand with her muzzle, hoping he understood that she wanted to shift and a change of clothes. Luckily, he understood. He stood up and walked to the back of his jeep and opened the door to look through the back. She padded after him. She watched him dig through a black duffel bag before pulling out some clothes. He handed them to her. She put it between her teeth and walked into the woods again. From the scent on the clothes he gave her, it was his. The shirt reached right below her butt and the sleeping pants were baggy, but she tugged on the strings and tied them. Once Mary made sure everything covered and won't slip off. She ran her hands through her brown hair and stepped back out into the light. All males that were waiting on her turned when they heard her. Ryker's eyes swept over her and it felt like fire licks. She felt it on every inch of her body. You coming? Ryker asked, even though he already knew the answer to his question. Mary was leaving. 11. Driving on the speeding highway. Ryker chanced to glance to the sleeping female body that buckled and curled up in the passenger seat. Old tears stained her cheeks. As soon as she was inside the jeep, she cried until her eyes were red and puffy. Her nose was red from blowing her nose often. Never in his life had a woman cried that much in front of him. He glanced back to the quiet highway. It was dark outside. Only the headlights of the jeep guided them on the highway. His enforcers could handle harsh training, whether even trek through mountains and heavy snowstorms. But when it came to a female crying, those bastards ran faster than you could blink. Presently, they were running in their wolf form and would more than likely make it there before Ryker. Abraham leaned forward between the passenger and driver's seat. He looked at Mary. I never knew that a female could cry that much. Abraham whispered to not wake Mary. It was pretty too. Ryker whispered back and turned his head to see if she heard him. Abraham chuckled softly. What are you going to do? Alpha Ivan was aware a female was potentially coming with us. He just didn't know who. He'll call him to let him know what happened. That male that stood next to her on our first day here. Abraham's sentence wandered off. Ryker remembered the male. At first, he thought the male was a potential mate to Mary. That day, he never felt more possessive of anybody. Without thinking, he had every intention of ripping Mary out of the male's arms. Fortunately for Ryker, the male was her brother. Judging by the proximity the two had at the welcoming party, he was overprotective of her, which means he was going to make this situation 1,000 tighter. I'll call him, Ryker murmured, regardless of her brother's overprotectiveness. She was way past the age of needing a guardian. They considered her an adult with equal freedom as a male. Even with her not being mated, Ryker didn't manipulate her decision to come with him. Ryker gave her an opportunity to which she took. Ryker's eyes skimmed the time on the dashboard. It glowed 12:37. It was late. Meet was late. and may have been driving for several hours. Their destination still a few more hours away. If Mary was with them, he would push through. But with Mary, it was a different story. Looking back on the highway, he caught sight of a highway sign that read, "Rest with the luxury of no stress. Exit 174. There is a hotel on the next exit," Ryker whispered. "We are stopping," Abraham asked in confusion. "Aren't we supposed to meet up with Callum in a few hours?" Callum was Ryker's human personal assistant. As a prime investor in many businesses, one downfall was the frequent travels to the human cities to promote engagement with rich people and attend special events. Ryker would have preferred to go straight home, but he needed to be at this event. He needed to be there to continue his investment cycles and hopefully seek better business opportunities near his pack. "We told him we would be there in the morning," Abraham reminded him. "He only needs one of us to be there." Ryker made a point in adding just as he pulled off the exit. When they arrived at the parking lot of the hotel, the brothers got out of the vehicle and exchanged a few orders and words. A few minutes later, Abraham left Ryker and Mary. In order for him to make it in time, he needed to quickly find the nearest wooded area and shift into his wolf form. Ryker watched his brother jog off down the sidewalk and rounded the corner before turning his attention back to Mary, who was still asleep. He opened the vehicle door gently. The female was a heavy sleeper. She didn't wake up when the vehicle came to a stop, nor did she wake up when he opened the vehicle door gently. He caught her just in time before she fell into a puddle on the hard cement ground. Carrying her in his arms, he walked them inside. On one shoulder he carried his duffel bag. When they reached the check-in desk, the kind lady associates quietly checked them and before handing him their key cards. Walking down the contemporary designed hallway, Ryker was glad that the hotel was decent because their only other choice was a small run, me-down motel that didn't look at all safe or all that clean. Going to the elevator, he clicked on the second floor. The elevator jerked just as the door closed and they were being lifted to the second floor. Mary's eyes opened. He felt her stiffen in his arms. Slowly, he let her down on her feet. She rubbed her swollen red eyes and squinted around her in confusion. "Where are we?" Mary inquired. "I decided we needed a few hours of sleep before we get back on the road." Oddly enough, he was slightly missing her warm body in his arms. Without thinking, he folded his arms across his chest. "Oh, you are tired?" she asked innocently. He smirked without thinking at her response. "Not really, but we are going to need it. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Aren't we going back to the pack?" He had left the details of their detour out of his offer. "No, there is something I need to do before we head back to the pack." He left it at that. There was no further explanation. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. Ryker stepped out first. He walked casually while reading the room numbers on the walls. He tried not to pay attention to her, but his complete backside was aware of her presence. His ears could hear her soft footsteps. Mary looked delectable in his clothes, even though his clothes covered almost every part of her body. He stopped when he reached their room, stopping and turning to look behind him. Mary stood right behind him. He expected her to run to the other side, protest, possibly break down and cry again. But she didn't. Instead, she looked at him and waited. "Are you okay with sharing a room with me? I am not comfortable with you sleeping in a separate room, especially when we are in unknown territory." He said, "It should be fine." She replied, she was okay with it. He should be relieved, but he felt that her quick agreement to share a room with him was unexpected. Not that he minded that she said yes because, in an unknown territory like this, things can get a little hairy. He opened the door for them both. Mary walked inside first. Her eyes moved to the queen-size bed, and he saw her should sag in relief. Mary walked up to the nearest bed and placed a hand on the mattress. He closed the door behind him and walked to the other bed. He placed the duffel bag on the adjacent bed. "Where are the others? Did they get themselves rooms too?" she questioned, and Ryker regarded her skeptically. Did she not see his enforcers running out of the jeep when she wouldn't stop crying? They ran in their wolf forms. Being in a moving vehicle isn't a comfortable experience for them. He didn't need to remind her of the reason she was crying again. They fell silent for a moment before they both simultaneously sat down on the edge of the bed. "Do you think I can borrow your phone?" Mary asked. Ryker turned his head to look at her. Without asking, he knew who she was calling. "They'll call your brother. You don't have to worry about it," Ryker assured her. "Oh no. He needs to hear it from me. He'll be so heartbroken that I left him like this." He can already see fresh tears clouding her vision already. And he thought about averting her thoughts. "In a bit. Take a shower first. I'll give you some of my clothes to change into," he quickly said. "It's okay. I'll just wear what you gave me. They are still clean," she said and stood up and walked to the bathroom. As soon as she closed the bathroom door, he listened until he heard the shower running, pulling out his phone from his pocket. He dialed Alpha Ivan's number and asked to be routed to her brother's phone. A few minutes later, Marcus answered. "Hello." Marcus's strained voice came from the other end of the line. "Marcus, this is Alpha Ryker. I know that it is late and I am sorry for calling later than I should have, but I am calling regarding your sister. You found her." Marcus's voice rose. "Well, technically, she found us," Ryker thought to himself. "Your sister informed me today that she would like to visit Lipac for a while. I have given her permission and Alpha Ivan is aware of the situation." Ryker chose his words carefully. "She wouldn't," Marcus said in disbelief. Ryker can hear disappointment and sadness in her brother's voice. The two siblings were close, just like Abraham and him. "Shall be safe. I'll protect her with my life," Ryker promised. "Your life. I'm sorry if I overstepped, but you are an alpha, and from what I have learned so far about your pack and you have many members. You'll protect them, but we both know that you can't protect them all." "Send her back to." "Are you too close?" Ryker interrupted. The shower was still running in the background. Marcus hesitated, but Ryker waited for his response. "Yes, she's my sister. My only family," Marcus stressed. "Then you should know what she wants even when she doesn't say it to you out loud." There was silence on the other end. "I tried giving her what she wanted," Marcus tried arguing. "But she doesn't need it. She's a mature female now." "Marcus, let your sister decide her fate," Ryker encouraged. "You don't understand. She's not like other females you have met. I'm guessing by your position hundreds of females have lined up to and slept in your bed more than 100 times. But Mary, she's innocent. I've protected her all my life," Marcus said. The shower turned off and Ryker knew he was running out of time. "You don't know me, so you've no reason to trust any of my words, but I give you my word that I will protect her as if I was you," Ryker promised. He felt Marcus give in. "You'll protect her," Marcus repeated. "You have my word," Ryker responded. The bathroom door swung open. Mary's eyes found Ryker immediately. Ryker still had Marcus on the phone. "Is that him?" she asked. Her hair was damp from her shower. He can tell that she had used the hotel shampoo and body wash. Marcus asked to speak with Mary. Ryker stepped into the bathroom next to take a shower, but he knew her brother was probably giving her hell. He took a little longer in the shower to give them time to talk. When he stepped out, though, he saw that Mary dimmed the hotel lights to give him enough lights to move around the room, but also allowed her to sleep. Not that he needed the lights to be turned on. He could see well even in the dark. Ryker's eyes swept over her hidden sleeping from under the hotel comforter. Even without asking, he knew she had cried terribly and did not want to talk about it. He let it go and walked to the other bed, turning off the lights completely. He crawled underneath the comforters and turned to his side. He sucked with his back to her, but found it uncomfortable and cowled in sleep. Ryker shifted in bed and turned to look at Mary. Her back was to him. He continued to look at her until he fell asleep. But before he slept, the last thought on his mind was the promise he made to Marcus. Without a doubt, Ryker knew that he will do everything he can to protect her.